The observation decks hummed with quiet superiority, the alien instructors' eyes glinting with the certainty of centuries-old expertise. They gathered in clusters, tentacles brushing against metallic consoles, exchanging sharp clicks of disbelief as the human cadets lined up for the first day of trials. "Another," snorted, its multifaceted eyes narrowing. Among the scrawny, awkward forms, one human stood apart, tall, wiry, and unassuming, yet his gaze burned with a fire no alien had anticipated. The instructors leaned forward as the trials began. The human cadet faltered in the first maneuver, misjudging distance, leaving him vulnerable. The aliens nodded knowingly, certain his failures would multiply. Yet something remarkable unfolded. Each correction, each reprimand, was absorbed with startling precision. Where weeks of practice failed other cadets, he mastered in hours. His body twisted and flowed through obstacle courses with a fluidity that defied the aliens' crude expectations of human fragility. Simulated combat was a revelation. The human cadet did not merely follow protocol, he improvised. He turned missteps into feints, weaknesses into traps. He anticipated the simulated enemy's moves, not through algorithms, but through an instinct that baffled the alien observers. Their confidence wavered as one unexpected maneuver after another unfolded, leaving no room for the arrogance they had carried in. By the final assessment, the council itself observed in stunned silence. The human cadet executed a sequence so intricate, so seamless, that even the most advanced alien combat programs failed to predict or counter it. As the evaluation ended, he stood, unbowed and composed, the top graduate by an unassailable margin. Tentacles trembled, eyes widened, and a low hum of disbelief spread across the chamber. They had laughed, they had doubted, and now they feared. Had they misjudged an entire species? Their whispers turned to contemplative awe, the seed of recognition planted deep. This was no mere trainee. This was the spark of something extraordinary. In that crucible of training, ridicule had forged respect, and doubt had transformed into trepidation. The human's triumph was a quiet declaration. The galaxy's balance might be altered, not by firepower or technology, but by ingenuity, will, and an indomitable spirit no alien could yet comprehend. And as the cadet exited the chamber, the alien instructors exchanged a look heavy with foreboding. Something unprecedented had emerged, a variable they could neither predict nor control, and the galaxy, silent beyond their observatory walls, waited. The void stretched endlessly, a black ocean pierced only by distant stars and drifting asteroids, and yet it was in this emptiness that the humans moved like shadows of inevitability. From the observation station, the alien narrator's many eyes traced the silhouettes of human vessels weaving with a precision that mocked the galaxy's expectations.
The silence was unnerving, too calculated, too deliberate. No alarms blared, no predictable formations emerged. Only movement, fluid and precise, like a predator stalking unseen prey. Alien fleets scoured the sectors, confident in their superior numbers, their weapons primed to obliterate the fragile intruders. Yet each engagement ended in bafflement. Small human strike teams would vanish among asteroid fields, re-emerging only to dismantle entire squadrons with surgical efficiency. The aliens murmured in disbelief. Impossible. Yet the humans' communication was imperceptible. A flicker of synchronized maneuver, a subtle adjustment of trajectory, and every fleet movement spoke volumes without sound. The alien observers noted with growing unease that the humans adapted faster than any protocol could account for. When ambushed, they improvised, using gravitational currents and debris to turn disadvantage into lethal advantage. Every tactical expectation the aliens held was subverted. Every simulation, every algorithm failed to predict the humans' next move. Fear began to ripple through the ranks of even the most disciplined alien officers. And yet fear was tempered by awe. How fragile they appeared, so lightly armored, so small, but their will bent the void itself to their strategy. The alien narrator, recording every engagement with a mixture of dread and fascination, could not comprehend the instinct guiding them. Yield, the observers whispered, trembling and awed. Humans did not merely fight, they transformed the rules of conflict, turning unpredictability into mastery. As the human fleet disappeared once more into the black expanse, leaving no trace but stunned silence, the aliens realized the terrifying truth. The war was no longer theirs to dictate. Something had changed. A new equation governed the void, one that their centuries of experience could not calculate. And in that infinite darkness, The human variable waited, unseen, patient, and unstoppable. The void was deeper than memory, a vacuum stretching beyond comprehension, speckled with the distant glimmer of dying suns and drifting, jagged asteroids. From the observation spire, the alien narrator's multifaceted eyes scanned the emptiness with a meticulous, almost clinical precision. Yet even here, amidst the hum of engines and the pulse of sensors, a disquieting sense of imbalance had begun to take root. The galaxy, for all its chaos, had grown quiet, too quiet, and it was in that oppressive silence that the humans thrived. The alien fleets, bristling with technology refined over millennia, were confident in their superiority. Vessels gleamed with shields and weapons arrays calibrated to destroy any opposition in seconds. Yet the human ships, smaller, lighter, almost insignificant, moved with an uncanny, deliberate grace that defied expectation. They darted between asteroid belts with uncanny precision, twisting and turning where alien cruisers would shatter against jagged rock.
Each human maneuver was a brushstroke on the canvas of the void, silent, seamless, deadly. Observing the humans, the alien narrator noted patterns that confounded centuries of tactical knowledge. Small human strike teams, rarely more than a handful of vessels, appeared to dismantle larger fleets with a terrifying efficiency. There was no warning, no conventional formation, no detectable command signal, only action, precise and instinctive. The aliens whispered among themselves, clicks and murmurs echoing across the observation deck. "Traitorous," one hissed, almost trembling. Another's tendrils twitched nervously. The humans did not merely execute plans, they improvised with an artistry the aliens had never encountered. When ambushed, they did not flee, they adapted. They used gravitational eddies and asteroid clusters as shields, flinging fragments like improvised weapons, turning the environment itself against their enemies. A sudden solar flare might be incorporated into a sudden blind strike, or a black hole's gravitational lens used to mask a movement across the battlefield. Every encounter was a lesson in unpredictability, every victory a reminder that experience and technology alone could not triumph over ingenuity and will. The alien fleets, once supremely confident, began to falter. Officers barked orders, trying to impose order on engagements that refused to follow any predictable sequence. Every calculation failed. Every maneuver the aliens thought would trap the humans was met with an unanticipated counter, executed with flawless timing and devastating effect. The human cadets fleet, or so the aliens had classified them, seemed to anticipate every move before it even occurred, as if they could see the future in fleeting microseconds invisible to alien perception. And yet, the humans' actions were not merely instinct. There was intelligence, creativity, improvisation, and above all, will, a relentless, unyielding force that refused to bend. Fear seeped slowly into the ranks. Even the most disciplined alien officers, trained for centuries to command fleets across hostile galaxies, began to hesitate. Whispers ran through the ranks, speculation about the humans' origins, their biology, their cognitive abilities. Could a species so physically fragile, so seemingly unarmored, hold such absolute mastery over the chaos of battle? How could such a small contingent reshape engagements across sectors? The alien narrator's sensors recorded the details obsessively, the angles of attack, the timing of maneuvers, the subtle gestures of the human captains. But even with infinite observation, comprehension eluded them. And yet, awe accompanied the fear. There was a strange elegance to the humans' unpredictability, a logic beyond the alien understanding, a pattern that was not pattern at all, but mastery of randomness.
Their ships flowed between asteroids like water between rocks, each move responding to forces and threats with a grace that suggested instinct was intertwined with conscious calculation. One moment, a human ship would dive toward a gravity well, seemingly courting destruction, and the next, it would emerge unscathed, striking an enemy vessel from a blind angle. The alien narrator struggled to reconcile these contradictions: fragility with dominance, chaos with precision, silence with absolute control. Long hours passed in observation. Battle after battle unfolded, each a revelation. The humans' communications were subtle, micro-adjustments in velocity, infinitesimal changes in formation that were imperceptible to sensors, yet perfectly synchronized. No war horn, no signal burst, no visible coordination, yet a cohesion that no alien fleet could replicate. The narrator's tendrils traced the telemetry, clicking and pulsing in fascination. Humans had rewritten the laws of engagement. They did not merely participate in war, they reshaped it entirely. They bent space, gravity, and probability to their will, using chaos as an ally rather than a threat. As the void swallowed another human fleet into shadows between drifting stars, the alien observer recorded the last visible signs of their presence. A ripple in the asteroid belt, a shimmer of shield energy, a fragment of debris nudged imperceptibly aside. Then nothing. Silence returned. The fleets of the aliens, once proud and assured, hovered like statues, scanning and recalculating, their confidence shattered. And somewhere in the emptiness, the human variable waited, unseen, patient, unstoppable. The alien narrator exhaled a low, reverent hum, a sound almost foreign to its kind. "We are no longer the authors of this war," it murmured to the other observers, who recoiled instinctively. The realization settled across the observation decks like a cold tide. The humans were not merely another species in the void. They were a force unto themselves, rewriting the rules of space, conflict, and expectation. And as the void stretched on, endless and dark, the question lingered among the alien ranks. How do you fight a species that bends the very fabric of chaos to its will, leaving no trace, no pattern, no weakness? The human fleet, silent and unseen, moved deeper into the void, and for the first time, the aliens felt a fear that was tinged with awe. A species so unassuming, so fragile in appearance, could command the impossible. The war was no longer predictable. It was theirs to observe, but not to control. And somewhere, waiting beyond sight, the humans were already planning the next impossible move. The nebulous tendrils curled like spectral fingers across the void, painting the edges of space in sickly shades of green and violet. Within this twisted miasma, the humans had carved a settlement so small, so unassuming, that it seemed almost an afterthought to the galaxy's cartographers.
The alien narrator hovered in silent observation, its sensors scanning every facet of the colony and the fleets that now converged upon it. Conventional logic dictated that this outpost, isolated and lightly fortified, would fall in hours. The alien generals had amassed overwhelming numbers, ships bristling with weapons, shields calibrated to annihilate anything that dared resist. But still, the humans held. From the observation deck, the aliens could see the humans moving with deliberate precision, transforming their environment into a weapon. Gravity wells were inverted to slow enemy ships. Derelict satellites were rigged as improvised mines, detonating in perfect synchronization with incoming attacks. The humans' drones darted through the chaos, feeding false signals to alien sensors, scattering fleets into confusion. Every movement was unexpected. Every tactic defied conventional warfare, and yet it was cohesive, intelligent, and devastatingly effective. The alien narrator could not comprehend the speed at which humans adapted. When one breach was forced, they rerouted power to shields in seconds. When supply lines were cut, they manufactured replacements from the most unlikely materials. They repurposed debris, salvaged weaponry, and even environmental hazards to turn every disadvantage into advantage. Observing this, the alien officers whispered among themselves, clicks of disbelief vibrating through their ranks. Hours stretched into cycles, yet the humans never wavered. Despite casualties and the constant onslaught, they recalibrated, reassessed, and struck again. One moment, a squadron of alien vessels would break through the perimeter. The next, they were ensnared in traps that seemed almost prescient. The narrator marveled at their resilience, a quality that surpassed skill, training, and technology. Humans did not merely react to circumstance, they dominated it. They learned, they adapted, they endured. By the end of the siege, the colony remained intact. Alien ships, battered and demoralized, were forced to retreat. The observers recorded every anomaly, every unexpected victory, and could not escape a profound realization. Human persistence was not simply a trait, it was a force unto itself, a law of nature. Where advanced technology and overwhelming numbers had failed, ingenuity and will had triumphed. The alien narrator exhaled a low, reverent hum. This was no ordinary species. These humans, fragile in appearance but indomitable in spirit, had demonstrated a singular truth. No calculation could fully predict them. No algorithm could contain them. And as the nebula's mist swallowed the battered fleets, the colony's lights flickering defiantly in the distance, the aliens understood something they had not before. Resilience, sheer unyielding persistence, could alter the course of war.
The final transmission from the colony crackled across the void, a defiant signal of survival. The alien generals recoiled at the audacity.
And in that silence, stretched thin across light years, the human defenders prepared for the next assault. Unbroken, unbowed, unstoppable. A force that the galaxy had never learned to fear, yet could no longer ignore. The void trembled, though no physical wave disturbed its endless darkness. From the alien observation deck, the sensors first detected a faint, imperceptible distortion, a ripple in hyperspace itself. Moments later, the human fleet materialized, emerging like a phantom from the folds of reality, appearing where the aliens had sworn no ship could exist. The fleet was modest in scale. Individually, the vessels were smaller, weaker, almost negligible against the monstrous cruisers of the alien armada. Yet the moment they moved, everything changed. The alien narrator recording each trajectory could scarcely believe the precision. The humans' formations were fluid, adaptive, and unpredictable. Squadrons weaved through space with a synchronicity that seemed almost telepathic. Each commander, though unassuming, displayed instinctual brilliance, anticipating enemy maneuvers before they were executed, exploiting weaknesses that the most advanced alien tacticians had overlooked. The aliens clicked their tendrils and shifted their eyes in agitation, trying to overlay prediction matrices over the humans' movement patterns. Each attempt failed. Every simulation they ran was obsolete within moments, every prediction upended by improvisation and intuition. In skirmishes that should have ended in disaster, human ingenuity turned catastrophe into advantage. A flotilla caught in a trap would suddenly pivot mid-battle, using gravitational anomalies to shield vulnerable ships while simultaneously striking enemy vessels from angles previously deemed impossible. Smaller ships acted as decoys, drawing fire and channeling alien attacks into calculated corridors where heavier human vessels awaited. There was no brute force at play. Power was irrelevant. Adaptability, courage, and a genius for strategy redefined the battlefield. The alien officers who had grown confident after centuries of conquest recoiled in disbelief. Their superior weapons were neutralized not by technology, but by unpredictability. The human fleet was a puzzle without solution, a force that could not be constrained by algorithms, experience, or brute calculations. The alien narrator's internal hum shifted, a mixture of awe and unease. These were not just soldiers, these were catalysts, agents that forced the galaxy itself to reconsider what was possible. Each engagement revealed more surprises. Humans improvised new tactics mid-battle, turned chaos into advantage, and leveraged every environmental variable. They exploited nebula currents, asteroid debris, and even radiation from distant suns to camouflage their movements. Every maneuver was both defensive and offensive, an orchestration of instinct and intelligence. Even when cornered, humans found openings that the aliens had not considered, forcing retreats that were humiliating in their efficiency. The alien narrator realized a chilling truth. Humans were rewriting the rules of combat with every encounter. They were teaching the galaxy that intelligence was not merely tactical calculation. It was adaptability, creativity, and courage fused into action. Patterns emerged, yes, but they were patterns that changed with every iteration. Impossible to predict, impossible to suppress. The narrator's multifaceted eyes reflected the fleet, tracing each movement in fascination and fear. A spark. No calculation can replicate it, it murmured internally. As the human fleet moved through the battlefields of the Outer Rim, their presence ignited hope in beleaguered colonies and despair in alien officers alike. The humans were more than a military force. They were the unpredictable variable, the factor that could bend the tides of war and shift the balance of the galaxy. Their ships, ghost-like and inexhaustible, vanished and reappeared across hyperspace corridors, leaving alien tacticians scrambling to adapt, and yet always a step behind. The alien narrator, compelled to observe rather than intervene, could only marvel and document. These humans, fragile in appearance but unrelenting in execution, carried within them a will that no number of weapons or fleet formations could subdue. And as the fleet slipped beyond sensors, disappearing into the void once more, the narrator understood the truth. Humanity had become not merely a participant in galactic conflict, but a force that challenged every assumption, reshaped every expectation, and left a trail of awe and fear in its wake. And somewhere beyond detection, unseen and silent, the human commanders prepared their next move, already anticipating the unthinkable, ensuring that the aliens would never predict what was coming next. The void had grown tense, pregnant with anticipation, as alien fleets lined up in confidence, certain that the humans, so small, so fragile, so audacious, would finally falter. Yet the silence before the storm was deceptive. From the observation decks, the alien narrator's eyes traced every movement, recording with clinical precision, yet sensing the anomaly before any data could reveal it. The humans were moving, but not as the aliens expected. This was no scattered skirmish, no defensive reaction. They were preparing a counteroffensive that defied logic, strategy, and precedent. The first strike came without warning. Human ships appeared at multiple vectors simultaneously, small formations weaving through asteroid belts and nebula tendrils, striking weak points the alien command had never considered. The alien generals blinked, tentacles twitching in disbelief. Defensive systems that had never failed before were rendered moot.
Shields were bypassed, energy conduits rerouted, and decoy flares manipulated enemy targeting into self-destructive patterns. What the aliens had perceived as raw strength, technological superiority, and battlefield dominance proved insufficient. Human ingenuity turned their perceived disadvantage into an advantage that no simulation had predicted. The narrator observed as humans executed sacrifice with precision. Small strike teams would lure the enemy into vulnerable positions, accepting calculated risk to create openings for the main fleet. Each movement was adaptive, fluid, and almost prescient. Alien commanders muttered in frustration, unable to comprehend how humans could anticipate weaknesses invisible even to their advanced sensors. In that moment, the definition of strength fractured. Force alone no longer dictated victory. Strategy, adaptability, and relentless will had emerged as the decisive power. Every human vessel, no matter how lightly armed, was leveraged to its fullest potential. Energy fields were rerouted, weapon output synchronized in ways that magnified their impact far beyond the sum of their parts. Salvaged debris, environmental hazards, even radiation belts became instruments of warfare under human command. The alien narrator's perception of calculation and probability, once absolute, began to crumble. Humans had transformed limited resources into exponential advantage, bending reality to their tactical will. The alien fleets tried to respond, but every attempt was anticipated, countered, and turned into opportunity. The humans adapted mid-battle, improvising strategies faster than the aliens could deploy countermeasures. Tactical doctrines, once immutable, failed repeatedly. The narrator felt an unfamiliar sensation, a mixture of fear, awe, and grudging respect. This was no ordinary combat. It was a demonstration of human intellect fused with relentless determination. And then came the pivotal moment. The human flagship, barely larger than a cruiser, executed a maneuver that split the alien fleet, exposing vulnerabilities across multiple sectors. The alien generals froze, eyes widening, tendrils trembling. In seconds, the humans exploited the gap, striking with precision and coordination that defied probability itself. Entire enemy squadrons collapsed in unexpected sequences, not through brute force, but through ingenuity, timing, and calculated risk. The turning point was unmistakable. Humans had seized the initiative, overturning centuries of alien assumptions about power, tactics, and control. Their victories were not the result of superior technology. They were the product of resilience, ingenuity, and an unyielding refusal to surrender. The alien narrator, once detached and clinical, now registered an emotion bordering on reverence and dread. Humanity was unstoppable, not because of strength, but because of will.
As the battlefront settled into stunned silence, alien officers began reevaluating everything they believed about war. Every calculation, every doctrine, every prediction had been challenged, rewritten by a species they had long underestimated. And somewhere, beyond sight and sensors, the human fleet regrouped, ready for the next strike, leaving the aliens to confront a terrifying realization. The war's outcome was no longer dictated by their technology or numbers, but by the indomitable human spirit. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath, as though even the stars themselves paused to witness what was unfolding. From the observation spire, the alien narrator's sensors struggled to keep pace with the human fleet's maneuvers. This was no conventional battle. The humans moved with an audacity that defied centuries of alien experience, collapsing space corridors to isolate entire fleets, rerouting gravitational conduits to trap ships in deadly loops, and deploying untested technology with a precision that seemed impossible. The observer's multifaceted eyes traced each trajectory, recording patterns that had no precedent. Every human unit, from nimble fleet scouts to heavily armored capital ships,
acted in flawless coordination. Ground squads on orbital stations synchronized their defense with orbital bombardments as if they shared a single consciousness. No algorithm, no pre-programmed tactic could anticipate the human's ingenuity. A strike that should have ended in annihilation was turned on its head. Ships caught in ambushes exploited environmental hazards, asteroid debris, radiation belts, and even the gravitational pull of nearby stars, transforming certain death into victory. The alien fleets, confident in superior technology and overwhelming numbers, faltered. Their weapons fired into corridors that no longer existed. Their sensors were deceived by illusions and decoys that humans improvised mid-battle. Tactical formations collapsed as the humans rewrote the map of engagement in real time. The narrator noted the audacity. Humans used feints and sacrificial maneuvers not recklessly, but with calculated brilliance, exploiting weaknesses the aliens had never perceived. Fear and awe intertwined within the alien observation decks. They had trained for millennia to dominate the galaxy through logic, precision, and sheer firepower. Yet here was a species whose unpredictability was its ultimate weapon, whose creativity and will outpaced centuries of technology and strategy. The narrator's internal hum thrummed with exhilaration and dread. It was witnessing a species that transcend conventional definitions of combat. In a pivotal moment, the human fleet converged upon the alien flagship array. Smaller vessels acted as catalysts, drawing fire and creating openings. Capital ships struck simultaneously from multiple axes, exploiting structural vulnerabilities invisible to even the most advanced alien scanning.
The flagship's shields flickered, systems overloaded, and the alien commanders scrambled, unable to respond. One by one, entire fleets succumbed, not through brute force, but through the human's combination of intellect, courage, and ingenuity. As the dust settled across the battlefield, silence fell, broken only by the faint hum of human vessels regrouping. The aliens, battered and bewildered, recorded the outcome with a mixture of fear and reluctant admiration. The human victory was absolute. They had turned what should have been a final confrontation into proof of a species capable of rewriting the laws of conflict itself. From the alien narrator's perspective, a chilling realization took root. Humans were not merely participants in galactic warfare, they were architects of its evolution. Their unpredictability, ingenuity, and indomitable spirit had not only triumphed in battle, but had permanently altered the trajectory of civilizations. Intelligence, willpower, and courage had proven stronger than technology alone. And as the humans withdrew into the void, silent, unbroken, and undefeated, the alien fleets retreated, their calculations shattered. The galaxy would never be the same. The war had ended, but the ripples of humanity's triumph continued to reverberate across the galaxy. From the observation decks of countless alien civilizations, the narrator watched as fleets once hostile now hesitated, recalibrating not only their strategies, but their assumptions. The humans, small and unassuming in appearance, had become legends in a matter of cycles. Former adversaries regarded them with a respect that bordered on reverence, and the whispers that had once mocked human fragility were replaced with cautious admiration. Colonies that had long been abandoned or considered lost were revitalized under the guidance of human ingenuity. Supply chains once thought irreparable were reconstructed with improvisation and resourcefulness. Settlements that had teetered on the brink of collapse now thrived, fortified not by raw firepower, but by creativity and foresight. Conflicts that had persisted for generations were mediated through a combination of diplomacy and tactical ingenuity, often orchestrated by human negotiators who understood both the fragility and the stubborn resilience of life. The alien narrator, chronicling these events, reflected on the irony of the galaxy's perception. Species had feared humans for their technology, or rather the perceived lack thereof, expecting them to fail. Yet it was not machines or weapons that had secured humanity's victory. It was something far more elusive: curiosity, adaptability, and courage, fused into action. The narrator observed as humans continued to teach, inspire, and elevate civilizations merely by existing as an example of what could be achieved when indomitable will met intelligence. Alien scholars and strategists pored over the humans' campaigns, attempting to codify their methods.
But no pattern could fully account for the unquantifiable qualities that drove human triumph. Every encounter, every maneuver, every act of resilience defied conventional explanation. The narrator noted with a hum of awe that humans had not conquered through domination, but had catalyzed change, forcing the galaxy itself to evolve in response to their presence. Across the stars, human influence spread quietly but inexorably. Colonies rebuilt with ingenuity, fleets recalibrated with new understanding, and even rival species began to question the very metrics by which they measured strength. The humans were catalysts, shaping the galaxy not by fear, but by the demonstration of possibility, the ability of a fragile species to thrive against impossible odds. The narrator's sensors captured moments of small, almost intimate human triumphs. A colony surviving a catastrophic storm through clever engineering, a fleet averting disaster with a sudden tactical pivot, a settlement negotiating peace where war had long prevailed. Each instance reinforced the central truth the aliens were slow to accept. The humans' greatest weapon was their spirit. Their victories were not solely about survival. They were proof that resilience, creativity, and courage could bend even the harshest laws of the universe. In the end, the galaxy's perception shifted. Humans were no longer merely participants in galactic history. They were exemplars, a standard against which intelligence, adaptability, and courage were measured. The alien narrator, recording these observations with quiet reverence, acknowledged a new humility. Humanity was rare, perhaps unparalleled, a phenomenon that defied prediction, calculation, and even fear. They had not conquered through sheer power, but had reshaped the universe by demonstrating the indomitable human spirit. As the stars stretched endlessly into the void, the narrator reflected. This species, so unassuming, so underestimated, had done more than survive. They had inspired, transformed, and redefined the meaning of possibility across the galaxy. And in that acknowledgement, even the most ancient and proud civilizations understood that humanity was a force that could not be ignored. The galaxy had learned a fundamental truth. Where humans were present, hope, ingenuity, and resilience followed. And for the alien narrator, a sense of awe settled permanently within its consciousness, a recognition that something extraordinary had emerged, a spark in the cosmos that no calculation, weapon, or strategy could ever contain. Decades had passed, yet the galaxy still reverberated with the echoes of humanity. From the observation spires of ancient alien academies to the archives of distant colonies, historians pored over the records of human campaigns, chronicling every maneuver, every act of ingenuity, every demonstration of unyielding will.
The alien narrator, now aged in perspective but sharpened in understanding, traced the trajectory of a species that had defied prediction at every turn. What once seemed fragile, unremarkable, and expendable had become a standard against which civilizations measured intelligence, strategy, and courage. The cadet who had first stunned the alien instructors in the crucible of training had become legend, a symbol of potential unbounded by biology. His exploits were taught as foundational lessons, how meticulous observation, creative improvisation, and relentless persistence could overturn expectation and redefine capability. From that single spark of human determination emerged fleets that outwitted empires, colonies that thrived against impossible odds, and strategies that became case studies across alien academies. The narrator recorded, with reverent clicks, the paradox of the human influence. Their victories were rarely achieved through raw power, yet their impact reshaped the entire galaxy. Colonies long considered doomed were revived, adopting tactics inspired by human ingenuity. Supply networks, defensive systems, and fleet formations now bore the unmistakable mark of human philosophy: adaptability above all, creativity as strategy, and will as weapon. Even the most rigid alien minds were forced to acknowledge the unquantifiable nature of human intelligence, the spark that could transform despair into opportunity. Where once aliens had calculated every outcome in simulations, they now incorporated lessons from humans, learning that unpredictability could itself be harnessed into advantage. Legends grew alongside history. Stories of the human fleet emerging like phantoms from hyperspace, of strike teams sacrificing themselves to open avenues of triumph, of colonies resisting sieges with nothing but wit and courage. These tales became mythic, repeated across the galaxy with awe.
Alien societies debated, taught, and codified these accounts, blending fear, respect, and admiration into a narrative that endured. Even generations removed from direct contact, alien children studied human strategy and resilience as aspirational benchmarks, marveling that such a fragile species could so fundamentally alter galactic history. The narrator noted the enduring paradox. Humanity's influence was profound not because of weapons, technology, or sheer numbers, but because of qualities impossible to quantify: vision, adaptability, and relentless will. Across star systems, echoes of human tactics had seeped into alien doctrines. Philosophies shaped by observation of a species that refused to surrender were now embedded into governance, diplomacy, and warfare. Humans had not merely survived, they had transformed expectations of what a species could achieve. In a quiet corners of alien archives, the narrator reflected on the lasting imprint. Humans had become both history and legend, a touchstone for potential that transcends biology and circumstance.
Fear, once dominant in the narratives of alien observers, had evolved into respect, and that respect, tempered with awe, endured as a universal truth. A species unbowed, unbroken, and brilliant in spirit could bend even the galaxy to the scope of its vision. Even now, centuries later, the human legacy whispered through space like a pulse in the void, unseen yet undeniable. Every fleet maneuvered with a caution inspired by human tactics. Every colony thrived with principles derived from human resilience. In every corner of the galaxy, civilizations acknowledged that the humans had done more than fight, survive, or conquer. They had transformed understanding itself. And as the narrator concluded its chronicle, it pulsed with reverent certainty. The galaxy had been forever changed by a species whose ingenuity and indomitable spirit had written a new standard of possibility, leaving a mark that no force, no time, no civilization could erase. The humans, in their unassuming way, had become immortal, not through monuments or technology, but through the enduring influence of intellect, courage, and will. Their echoes would guide civilizations for generations, a testament to the power of a species that refused to yield, inspiring awe, humility, and admiration across the stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly, a lattice of stars and void, each system a node in the predictable calculus of interstellar order. And yet, amid the patterns and probabilities, one variable remained ungovernable: humanity. From the alien narrator's observation decks, every encounter with humans was recorded, analyzed, yet never fully explained. Fleets, colonies, strategies, all calculations collapsed when faced with their ingenuity. No algorithm, no sensor array, no quantum prediction could anticipate the choices, improvisations, or instincts of this species. Humans had taught the galaxy a lesson in unpredictability. Where other civilizations relied on structure, protocol, and brute force, humans relied on intuition, courage, and creativity, qualities that defied the rigidity of logic and machines. They adapted mid-battle. They improvised solutions to impossible problems. They transformed failure into opportunity. The alien narrator reflected on centuries of study, realizing that every model and doctrine had underestimated a force no calculation could capture. Humans were chaos distilled into precision, disorder forged into ingenuity, fragility transmuted into power. Every victory humans achieved, from the cadet who had first astonished the alien instructors to fleets that turned impossible odds into triumph, became a study in anomaly. Alien historians and tacticians still debated their methods, attempting to codify a species that refused categorization. Observation had become fascination. Fear had become awe. Humans, in their raw brilliance, were no longer merely participants in galactic history. They were the disruptive axis around which it pivoted.
The narrator recalled the sieges, the counteroffensives, the fleet maneuvers, and the colonies held against all expectation. In each, humans demonstrated a singular truth: Their will and intellect were forces that transcended technology and numbers. Where others could be contained, predicted, or neutralized, humans remained untamed, unquantifiable, and utterly consequential. The galaxy had learned that some variables could never be constrained. In quiet reflection, the narrator's voice, soft, reverent, tinged with fear, acknowledged the paradox. Humans were both a lesson and a warning. Their presence demanded humility from even the most advanced civilizations, a recognition that mastery of machinery and mathematics alone could never secure certainty. Intelligence, resilience, and willpower, qualities once undervalued, could bend the course of destiny itself. And so humanity became legend, not through empire or dominion, but through the singular ability to defy expectation. Their influence rippled through colonies, fleets, and entire civilizations, a testament to what could be achieved when spirit, ingenuity, and courage converged. The alien narrator concluded its chronicle, its tendrils still trembling with awe. The galaxy would never fully comprehend humans, nor contain them, nor predict them. They were the ultimate anomaly, the unpredictable variable, and in their wake, they left a universe forever changed. The stars themselves seemed to acknowledge it, silent witnesses to a species whose brilliance refused categorization. Humans had become the measure of possibility, the spark that reminded the cosmos that intelligence without boundaries, will without compromise, and courage without fear could alter the fate of all. And the narrator, chronicling this, understood a truth the galaxy would carry forever. Where humans walked, chaos became creativity. Unpredictability became mastery, and the ledger of the cosmos was forever rewritten. The void stretched infinitely, a canvas of darkness punctuated by distant suns, nebulae, and drifting remnants of civilizations long past. From the observation decks of countless alien worlds, the narrator's gaze lingered on the legacies left by a species that had defied expectation at every turn. The humans, so fragile in adherence, so unassuming, so underestimated, had endured, and their impact had become more than victories or tactics. It was the human spirit itself that radiated across the galaxy, a force as uncontainable as the stars themselves. The narrator reflected on the countless campaigns, sieges, and battles documented over decades. Humans had turned fragility into strength, improvisation into precision, and desperation into triumph. Where other species relied on overwhelming technology, calculated maneuvers, and numerical superiority, humans relied on qualities that could not be simulated: ingenuity, courage, adaptability, and the relentless refusal to surrender.
Observing them, the narrator realized that these were not just traits. They were the essence of a species that had redefined what it meant to survive, to innovate, and to inspire. Even in colonies isolated on the edge of nebulae, humans had transformed adversity into opportunity. They had rebuilt, defended, and thrived in conditions that should have broken them. Entire fleets had turned the tide of war through improvisation and intuition. Diplomatic efforts, fueled by creativity and empathy, had prevented conflicts that centuries of alien policy could not resolve. Across the galaxy, wherever humans touched, civilizations began to measure possibility differently. The narrator's sensors recorded both awe and fear, recognizing a species whose influence extended beyond immediate conquest or strategy. Humans had become a standard against courage, intellect, and resilience were measured. The narrator paused on the irony that had become a central lesson of humanity. The galaxy feared them for what they lacked in raw technological superiority, yet it was their unquantifiable qualities that proved decisive. Adaptability, imagination, and determination, intangible, unpredictable, and untamable, had allowed humans to accomplish what no algorithm, fleet, or weapon could secure. In every battle, every colony saved, every impossible maneuver, the narrator discerned a singular truth: the human spirit endured, uncompromised and unbroken, shaping the cosmos in ways beyond comprehension. As centuries passed, even species that had once fought against humans came to revere them, not as conquerors, but as exemplars. Their presence, subtle yet profound, inspired ingenuity and resilience across civilizations. tales of the cadet who had exceeded expectations, of colonies surviving sieges through improvisation, of fleets rewriting the rules of engagement, all became legend, myth, and guiding principle. The narrator observed that this legacy was not confined to memory. It persists in systems, strategies, and philosophies, ensuring that the human influence would continue to shape the galaxy for generations. In quiet reflection, the alien chronicler acknowledged the ultimate lesson. It was not mere survival, not raw strength, nor technological dominance that defined humanity. It was spirit, a force unyielding, untamed, and enduring. The galaxy had witnessed a species that could transform chaos into strategy, weakness into resilience, and fear into inspiration. Humans had become the heartbeat of possibility, the measure of what could be achieved when intellect was paired with courage and determination refused to yield. As the stars stretched endlessly into the void, the narrator's voice, a low, reverent hum, echoed across observation decks and archives. Humanity endures. Beyond victories, beyond tactics, beyond ingenuity, their spirit persists, eternal, wild, and extraordinary.
In every system touched, in every star observed, the galaxy remembered. Humans are not merely survivors of the cosmos. They are its uncontainable heartbeat, a force that defies prediction, transcends expectation, and inspires awe across the void. And in that acknowledgement, the alien narrator recorded the final truth, etched into the archives of civilizations. The human spirit endures, and with it, the universe itself has been irrevocably changed.